guys to practice this by going to find me a picture of a state as defined by these four items. Your state has to have complete sovereignty over its territory, its population, and its system of government. And then simply paste your picture on the whiteboard. So I've given you whiteboard permission. Go and grab a picture of a state and come and post it. And if you want to write the name of the state underneath, you can definitely do that. Because sometimes it's hard to tell what the picture is. Alicia is still asking a great question. How are we not a state? Go back to this slide with me. Washington State does not have complete control because we are a subsection of the United States. Remember that our federal government can override Washington State. So we are called a state. We're called Washington State, but we're called Washington State. Think of it like a little S. We have a big daddy, and our big daddy is the United States government. The federal government is the state. When we're looking at Washington on a global scale, we are just kind of a child. Our big dad is the federal government. Our state is the United States. That's why we're called the United States of what? The United States of America, right? So we're just a component of that. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and grab me a picture of a state. There we go. Awesome job. The United States is a state. Exactly. England is a state. That was Christina. Awesome job, Christina. Awesome. Who put Canada? Gemma put Canada. Canada is a state. Marshall, good job. You are exactly right. The United Kingdom, England, that is a state. Excellent job, you guys. Now, some of you are still thinking, I'm confused. Look at this map that Bridget put up there of the United States. She's going to move this Australia. Good job. Let me grab that map real quick, see if I can find the United States. And you guys are like putting pictures on pictures. I love this. Countries are states, Gemma. That's exactly right. That's an easy way to think about it. A country has territory, they have a population, they have a government, and they're sovereign. Remember that the United States really cannot go and tell another country what to do. But the United States can't come tell Washington what to do. Right? And even though there's relationships, Colin, Canada is still an independent country. But there is a relationship between Canada and England, just like there is between England and Australia. Thank you. Whoever put this one up there about Israel, that's a great one. Dana, great job with that one. Oh, Alex, you put Guatemala on there for me. Alex, thank you. Jericho, you have a question. Do you want the mic or do you want the chat? Yes, everyone is taking over the whiteboard, exactly. And there's a lot on here, but what's great about this is that we got the concept of what a state is. And that's awesome. That's awesome. Good job. Jericho, do you want the mic or do you want to ask your question via the chat box? Excellent. Go ahead, Jericho. Yes. Zakira said, I can't find a picture, but can I just say Asia? The answer is yes, you definitely can. Asia is a great example, but let me tell you this. When you're looking at Asia, Zakira, Asia is an area that will have countries. So instead of just saying Asia, you would want to say Thailand. Or you would want to say China. Or you would want to say Vietnam. So Asia is a good thinking map in terms of conceptually, but you would want to be more specific about a state. Good question. Jericho, go ahead and type it. And as you do, I'm going to start to have you guys read about the Enlightenment, and I'll tell you why. Because the Enlightenment is what led to the idea of social contract, and social contract is what many states use to define government. And Jericho, did you put your question in there? Because if you did, I think I missed it. Russia would be a great one, Chris. Russia would be a great one. Yes. All right, so let's start thinking of Jericho. We're going to watch for your question. Very good. Okay, so Jericho's question is, why is America considered a state when it's a nation? Let's go back here real quick, Jericho. Here's how you think of it. In today's social studies thinking, a state, as defined here, is the same thing as a country, as a nation. So when you're thinking about a state, you can use these words interchangeably. For our purposes, definitely. So when you're thinking of a state, think of the United States. It's our country, it's our nation. Good question. Good question. All right, Sweet Civics kids. The Enlightenment. Miss Levin is saying, I love the Enlightenment. This is awesome. Okay, so having said that, you guys, the Enlightenment was an intellectual movement. It was a thought process movement. And as this movement spread, it started in France, and then it spread around Europe, and eventually it made it to your nation. And Alicia's right. The Enlightenment had a new idea about government and people. And it really was a reaction to an absolute monarchy. They said, you know what, people having, like one or two people having all the power is not a good idea. So these philosophers started to argue about what social equality meant and individual liberty. Now this is another good word. What's another word that we could use for liberty? What's another word we could use for liberty? Freedom. Exactly. You guys got it. What else? So they're thinking, listen, hey, what do we have about social equality and individual liberty? And so all these ideas started to permeate society, and people started to believe that they had rights, and that as an individual, my rights were important. And what we had seen were that monarchs or totalitarian governments were trampling on the rights of people. And as a result, philosophers said, hey, let's look at some different ideas. The one that you need to know is John Locke. Give me a green check if you've heard about John Locke before. Have you heard about John Locke? Anybody? Okay, and a couple of you are chatting to me and saying, you know what, I've never heard this man before in my life. Yep, I know, and thank you for giving me a green X if you didn't. And that's okay, right, Miss Levin and Miss McNeil? He is definitely a philosopher. John Locke was an Enlightenment, and this is great. Some of you are chatting to us some really interesting information about John Locke. He is definitely an enlightened thinker, and Miss Levin is saying, "Hey, take world history with me. You'll learn all about him." He's great. He really took an idea about the social contract and expanded on it. So now we're going to see the connection between a state and the social contract. John Locke wrote a paper. It's called the Second Treaty on Government, and that's the one we're going to take a look at. And John Locke said a few things that are important to you as you're looking at CWI and America. He said, first of all, that life is very different in the state of nature. If you don't have a state and people just lived without any government, life would be difficult. It would just be hard. And he said, this is why. He said, when you're born a human, you're born with what we call natural rights. And those natural rights are rights that you get, but they're not protected in a state of nature. And this is why. You're exactly right, Alondra. It's chaotic. If you just put human beings in an area and you had no government, it would be a state of nature and it would be chaos.